delicious beef and fondant potatoes and lovely vegetables. Now we're going to concentrate on a nice pudding. It's a bitter chocolate pot with raspberry marshmallow. If you like bitter chocolate, like I do, this is the perfect dessert. So I'm going to run through its lengthy process of assembling, but please persevere with it because it is a nice dessert. And I'm going to show you how to make the marshmallow first, and then we can go on to the bitter chocolate pot. So the first thing to do with making a marshmallow, you need to make the meringue, and that's Italian meringue. So instead of adding the sugar directly to the egg white, you're going to mix it with some water and take it up to 122 degrees, which is hardball, which we call hardball on a sugar thermometer. And then you set it then with gelatin. So I'm using bronze leaf gelatin, which you need to soak for 2 or 3 minutes to soften, and then you need to then dissolve it. So I'll run through the process as we go along, but I've got my gelatin, I've got my egg whites, I've got my caster sugar, my egg whites, my gelatin, which like I said I'm going to soak, and then I've got my golden syrup. You can use liquid glucose if you wish, but golden syrup works just as well, or you could use honey, but I prefer to use golden syrup over honey. And then it's a case then of once it's cooked, you then turn it out into a container. And what I'm going to do with this, liberally cover it with a mixture of corn flour and icing sugar. That's the important part because it will stick. So liberally cover all that with the mixture, and then when you turn the meringue out, you then do the same with the top, and then you leave it to rest at least for a good couple of hours, and then you can cut it up. And what I've done, I've mixed it, mixed the gold icing sugar with this lovely raspberry powder, and all this is dried or frozen dried raspberries, which is then blitzed to make a powder. So you've got the lovely flavour, the freshness of raspberries, and then you get a nice colour and flavour to go with the chocolate pot. So I've got my sugar, my water and my golden syrup in here, and what I'm going to do now is just very lightly dissolve it all together. I don't want to bring it to the boil because the sugar wouldn't have dissolved, and if you don't do this process it will crystallize, and therefore you have to throw it away and start again. So just a very gentle heat, just to dissolve the sugar, the golden syrup in the water, and then once that's dissolved I can then ramp up the heat and then boil it very fiercely until it reaches 122 degrees, which like I said is hardball on a sugar thermometer. Then once it's reached that temperature, I can then pour it on to my whipped egg whites, and so the boiling hot sugar will then cook the egg whites, which makes it a really stable mixture. So the sugar is boiling, as you can see it's boiling away really well. It'll take about 10 minutes to get to 122 degrees, so I won't put my thermometer in there quite yet because I know it's nowhere near. Now I'm going to dissolve the gelatin, so as you can see it's nice and soft now. I've got a little bit of water with some red food colouring because it's going to be raspberry marshmallow, so that's warm, and I'm simply just going to put that into the warm mixture, and then that will just dissolve. So it's been boiling away now for probably 5 minutes. It's at 103 degrees. Now when you're boiling sugar, it's very important to always wash down the sides of the pan, because when it's spitting, like it's bubbling now, it's spitting, so it's got granules of sugar all around the sides. And what happens is they will then go hard and it will fall back into that sugar and make it crystallize. So it's very important just to have a pastry brush, have some water, and just wash down the sides every now and then. It's now coming up to 115 degrees. So what I want to do now is get my egg whites ready. So I'm going to whip them up. I've got my liquid with my gelatine ready. So it's a case of, once that's reached the temperature, you put it into the egg whites and you carry on whisking. You then add the gelatine and then you carry on whisking until it goes cold. So it's very handy to have a machine like this, but a little hand whisk, you'll probably find a small quantity will work just as well, but anything like this quantity, like you'll see the recipe on the website, it really does need one of these freestanding mixers. So we're nearly there, 118 degrees. My egg whites are now whipped, and it's just a case of just taking it the extra few degrees, then I can start adding all the ingredients together. So it's 120 degrees. I mean, it's very precise. You really do need a thermometer because it's well worthwhile. So it's now 122 degrees. So we'll turn that off. So while the machine is turning, you literally very carefully add the sugar. So as you can see, I'm just drizzling in the sugar syrup. Now that's cooking the egg whites, which is what chefs call an Italian meringue. It's basically a very stable meringue once it goes cold. So as you can see, all the syrup is now in there, and it's a case now of just carry on whipping. And here I've got my gelatine. Which very carefully going to add. So I've just mixed a little bit of red food colouring in, just to give it a lovely colour. And it's now a case of whisking for another 5 minutes until it goes cold. So this is the very important stage. So I've lined a baking tray with some cling film, and I've got equal quantities of corn flour, icing sugar, and some of this delicious raspberry powder. And all I do is literally just line the whole tray with the mixture, and then we get the lovely meringue. And then all you do with a spatula, just turn it out onto the mixture like so. Now, because I've done half the recipe for this tray, I'm going to just put a little block against it to stop it from spreading out, because I like it nice and thick. So it's like so. And then it's very important. Very important just to douse everything in the like so. And then finally, I mean, you will make a mess, it's inevitable, but just ensure that you coat the meringue with ample amount of ice and sugar, corn flour. Then you leave that to rest for a good 24 hours and then it'll be ready to cut. Once the meringue or the marshmallow is set, you will then be able to cut it into strips, and then you can just cut off little chunks like I've done here, and then coated it in some more raspberry powder. So it's well worth the hard work of doing this, because the end result with the chocolate really is quite a treat. With the chocolate pot, I'm going to mix or lightly whisk over heat, so I've got a little bit of heat there, with the orange juice, the orange zest, and one thing I'm going to put in is a splash of Cointreau, because that does add a lovely flavour with the chocolate. So all I'm doing is whisking until it becomes a sabayon. So in other words, till you can, write your name in it or write your initials in it. So you can see it's beginning to thicken up very slowly, and you see the steam. So it's not touching the water at all. It's just the steam warming the egg yolks. If it was touching the water, you'd probably get scrambled egg, which is what you don't want. So as you can see now, that is ready. You can see that it's nice and firm. I've got my sabayon, I've got my cream whipped, my chocolate melted, and the egg whites whipped. So I'm just going to add the chocolate. So it really is a case of getting all the components ready, and lastly it's about just assembling. I'm just going to lightly twist this together. Then I'm going to put a little bit of cream. So as you can see, it's let it down a little bit now. And then it's a case of folding in the remainder of the cream. So just get around the edges and just fold in. Once it's all mixed in, you can then add the egg whites. So the egg whites are always the last thing to add, because that's the aeration, that's what gives it the lightness. So you don't want to knock the air out of the egg whites. So you can see I'm just folding it over. Like so. So just slowly incorporating those three components until you've got a nice, light, airy. You can see that it's nice and light and airy. Okay, and then we can just fill whatever vessel, cup, glass we wish. So I'm going to use these little cups, and then just spoon it in very gently. So with the Cointreau and the orange, really is a very tasty chocolate dessert. And together with the raspberry marshmallow, really is quite decadent, quite tasty, and something very special for Valentine's. As you can see, a very tasty Valentine's treat. This is what you can do with the Valentine's box which we at Arthur David have put together. Please persevere with the chocolate because it is a real treat, and with the fillet steak, the lovely accompaniments of the tender stem broccoli, the chantenay carrots, the grilled field mushrooms, the lovely fondant potatoes, and the peppercorn sauce by Bay Tree, along with this lovely mixed salad. So give it a go, enjoy it, and thank you.